The purpose of this video is to provide initial fluorescence settings for phytoplankton analysis. The fluorescence settings may need to be adjusted depending on your sample type. Note that you will need to modify the fluorescent measurement settings only if you choose to use trigger mode. Auto image mode does not use the fluorescence settings. Why would you choose trigger mode? Phytoplankton have inherent fluorescent pigments such as chlorophyll and different accessory pigments. The FlowCam is designed to evaluate a phytoplankton sample and trigger the camera to take images only when a fluorescent particle passes through the flow cell and is excited by the laser beam and emits fluorescence to the detectors above the acquisition threshold set in the context menu. In trigger mode, imaging is not set by the auto image rate, but instead is dictated by the number of fluorescent particles that pass through the system. Launch Visual Spreadsheet and select Context. Proceed to the Fluorescent Measurement Settings tab. There are two dials for each of the detectors labeled Channel 1 and Channel 2. The actual laser, wavelength, or color and the associated detectors depend on your FlowCam's laser and detector configuration. Refer to your instrument configuration guide for this type of information or contact customer care at fluidimaging.com with your FlowCam serial number if you want to know the laser or detector configuration. Make sure that the noise threshold multiplier is enabled and that the gain is set to the highest level. The starting value for channel 1 and channel 2 minimum should be set to 3.74. Keep the maximum value at the highest value. You do not need to change the maximum value. Constraining these values will eliminate any data that falls outside the range set. To evaluate whether you have the correct minimum value, you will need to run a sample using trigger mode and evaluate the images captured. If you notice that no fluorescent particles are acquired during trigger mode, then you will need to dial down the minimum fluorescent acquisition threshold values. If you notice that you are acquiring a lot of noise, or you suspect non-fluorescent particles during trigger mode, you may need to dial up the minimum threshold values. The values are in the log scale. These values can be adjusted using the dial, or you can type in a specified value. You will know that the correct fluorescent settings have been set by reviewing your trigger mode run. Confirm that the number of fluorescent particles is greater than the number of non-fluorescent particles by evaluating the images total and used values in your run summary. Make sure that the percentage used is at least greater than 70%.